time to go inside Utah politics, and we begin this morning with Republican gubernatorial candidate Thomas Wright. Thomas, you're no stranger to the show. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me on.
Just a different capacity this time around.
Thanks, Glenn. Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, you as well. You had quite a new year.
I did.
Announcing that you're going to
absolutely, I did.
Run for governor. What's the interest? Why do you want this job?
I looked at the field and I said to myself, you know what, I have something unique to offer. Utah matters to me. I'm passionate about it. I'm a business person. I'm not from government. I've never held elected office. And I can see down the road and I can see some challenges are coming. And Glenn, the best time to pay attention to problems that can arise is when things are going really well. We know that when things are going well, it's easy to become complacent and to love the status quo, but we can't do that. We've got to project and look down the road and be smart, and my outsider business training allows me to do that.
So when you talk about potential problems on the horizon, you're talking economically?
Well, I think economically, and we know economies change, but I think we have growth challenges related to our explosive population growth and our economic success. It's a lot of things.
Yeah, we'll get into some of those issues in a bit, but I wanted to ask you about this. You said you took a look at the field, meaning you know exactly who's in the race. You know, former Governor Huntsman, Lieutenant Governor Cox, among others. You chose to get in anyway. What do you see as your path to victory?
Well, I respect all the people in the race. I'm glad they're in. This is going to be a vigorous debate. There is a pathway to victory for me. I plan to win. I'm in the race to win. This is the first time that we're going to decide a governor by plurality, which I'm not all that crazy about, but I believe that there's a room in the race for an outsider, somebody that doesn't come from government, that has a fresh perspective, but that has a CEO background, that knows how to lead and knows how to manage and knows how to project problems before they happen. Let's
talk more about your background. You already mentioned your business background. We can still get into that more if you'd like to, but not your first run in politics. You've been the chair of the local party and you've been on the national scene as well. Talk about that.
Yeah, my service in the party was all volunteer. And I did it all because I believed in my conservative values, and I've met a lot of great people around the state. We've accomplished a lot. But when you combine that with my outsider business experience, I'm the perfect person to be the next governor because I know how it works, but I'm not beholden to anyone. I don't have any ties to anyone, and I can come in on day one and I can see everything with a fresh perspective, and we can start to solve some of these problems without worrying about what positions I've taken in the past.
Let's get more specifically into your business background. What it is you do and how you believe that relates to leading the state as the chief executive.
Well, I own and operate Summit Sotheby's International Realty. It's a real estate brokerage firm. I'm proud to be in the residential real estate space. We started with one office and have grown to 14 offices. I hate calling them employees, 50 employees. They're my people and friends, and we built this together, and a few hundred real estate agents, and we're one of the top real estate brokerage firms in the state, and we're really proud of that. We have offices from St. George all the way to the north part of the state.
Let's get into some of the issues we talked about. We already mentioned growth right off the top. That is the big one. You and I both grew up here. We've seen the population explosion. We know how it impacts daily life. As governor, how do you manage that? How do you look ahead to be able to continue that top quality of life and dealing with all the growth?
Well, you have to be able to project problems before they happen, because if you wait till the problem confronts you on transportation infrastructure or water or any of the challenges in our public schools or higher education, then it's too late. We have to have somebody who can anticipate those problems ahead. And unfortunately, in a 30-second soundbite, it's really hard to talk about transportation infrastructure and water and our schools and all those air quality that is so important to our quality of life, and also not leaving rural Utah behind. Rural Utah is an important part of the fabric of our society, and we need to make sure that they have the same opportunities that we have along the Wasatch Front.
Well, what would you say is the greatest challenge looking ahead when it comes to growth?
Public education. We've got to improve our public education system. It starts with teachers. We have a teacher shortage, and I'm a business person. I look at everything supply and demand, and when you don't have enough demand for a job, you need to pay more, and that will allow us to retain our teachers. It will change the teaching profession from what is now a second income job in some cases to being a more sought after profession. People teach because they love to teach, and we need to make it more rewarding for them and easier for them by deregulating the classroom and providing additional support services with mental health and behavioral health specialists, so they're not trying to do everything inside the classroom for too little pay.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. Is this also about more funding?
Well, to pay teachers more, you obviously have to find funding. We can do that by putting our money where our mouth is. We have to look at our state budget and say, is where we're spending our money our priorities? You can tell the priorities of our state by where we're spending the money. I've traveled around the state. I've talked to people all over the state. They want the teachers to be paid more. We have a $20 billion budget. We can do it with the existing dollars we have. We can make government even smaller, but we've got to put our money where our mouth is and spend the money where our priorities really lie.
That leads us right into the next issue, tax reform. You know the bill that was just passed in a special session last month. If you were governor, would you have supported that and signed it?
The problem, the illustration of tax reform is an illustration of why I'm running for governor. We were told that there was a structural imbalance last session. The part-time legislature held meetings all over the state to talk about it. But the problem was the special session was called before the final bill was presented to the governor. As governor, I would not have called the special session because the bill had not been put forward to the public. So there was no way for them to know what was in it. And the legislature went to the legislative session and they passed it. The bill has challenges. It's a starting point. There's 3 things in it that are really good, and there's 3 things in it that need to be addressed. We want our income tax to be cut. We want seniors to pay less in Social Security taxes. And we want to take the standard deductions that we're not getting right now because of the Trump tax cuts. Utahns are not being able to take advantage of the federal tax code because our state law is not in sync.
So what are the
But then the other 3,
yeah,
the
let's
other
talk
3.
about those.
Oh, good question, Glenn. The other 3 are the food tax, the transportation, the gas tax, increasing the gas tax, and then sales tax on services. Those are the 3 that people are struggling with, that you've seen the public outcry. And we need to work on those. What we've seen was...
So would you have worked that out before you would sign the bill?
To the degree that you can, yes, absolutely. Because if you call a special session and you haven't seen the bill, what you're saying is we'll see the bill when the legislature sees it. And I think that put them in a really challenging spot after they worked a year to tackle the issues.
Let's move on to abortion. Last year, the state approved an 18-week ban. They did so knowing beforehand that opponents would be taking it to the court. That's where it is. If you were governor, would you have signed that bill?
Well, I'm pro-life. I believe life begins at conception. I have 4 beautiful kids. The sweetest days of my life were the moment that they were born. I cherish them, and I remember holding those little babies in my hand and looking at them and realizing that it was a little piece of heaven, that was a human life. And so for me, I'm a pro-life advocate, and that's where I stand on that
So
issue.
you would have signed that bill?
Yeah, I would not support anything that's, yes.
Okay. Does it need to go further? We're starting to see that play out across the country now. Some are looking at abortion bans from the very beginning.
Look, I think we need to preserve the rights of the unborn. And I know that it's a challenging issue and that it's complicated for people, and we have different opinions on this issue, but for me, I'm pro-life. I know when life starts, and that's where I stand.
Conversion therapy for minors, should that be banned in the state of Utah?
I was proud that Utah was the 19th state to pass a ban on conversion therapy. The definition that they used for conversion therapy in Utah was accurate. What was happening under that definition was wrong, it wasn't right, and it was really dark. And I'm glad that Utah stepped up, signed the conversion, and that we have a conversion therapy ban. And I want the LGBTQ kids in our state to know that they're welcome here, they have a place here, and that definition of conversion therapy has no place in Utah.
Let's get back into rural Utah a little bit more, public lands specifically. Do you support what President Trump did in reducing Bears Ears and Grand Staircase Escalante?
Yes.
About 30 seconds left.
Yes, I support the local control of our public lands. Those lands have been used by people in that area for years, for hunting, fishing, and recreating. And there's nothing more frustrating than have a federal agency that's not connected to us and our lifestyle, controlling our federal lands and telling us what we can and can't do with them. I support local control of our public lands, and I will fight for that if I'm elected governor.
All right, this is a fascinating race, one we will be watching. Thanks so much for your time. Appreciate having you with us.
Thanks for having me on, Glenn.